The city had just started waking up. The distant hum of traffic, the chirping of birds, and the occasional bark of a stray dog mixed together, forming the familiar morning symphony. The air carried the crisp scent of damp pavement, left over from the previous night's drizzle. On the quieter side of town, Mike Reynolds drove his garbage truck down a narrow street, just like he did every morning. He knew these streets better than anyone, better than the people who lived here even. Every crack in the sidewalk, every pothole, every house where kids left their bikes carelessly on the lawn. Mike had been a garbage man for over 20 years. He had seen it all, the good, the bad, the forgotten. Most people never noticed him. To them, he was just part of the background, blending into the rhythm of their morning routine. But not everyone. At the end of a driveway, a little girl in a bright yellow raincoat stood, holding something in her tiny hands. Her face was practically glowing with excitement. Her name was Lily. For weeks, she had been watching Mike from her window, fascinated by the way he worked, how he always waved at her when he saw her staring. He never missed a day, and today she had something important to give him. As Mike stepped down from the truck, tossing another bag into the compactor, Lily ran toward him, clutching a pink envelope. "This is for you," she chirped, bouncing on her toes. Mike blinked, taking the envelope hesitantly. "For me?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "It's my birthday tomorrow, and you're invited." Mike looked down at the envelope, speechless. He had never been invited to something like this before. People didn't invite their garbage men to birthday parties. Lily's mother, standing nearby, smiled warmly. "She's been so excited to give you that." Mike glanced between them, then back at the invitation. His throat felt tight. "Well, thank you, Lily. I'll see if I can come." Lily's face lit up, and with a joyful squeal, she dashed back inside. As Mike climbed back into his truck, he couldn't shake the feeling that something in his world had just shifted. That evening, Mike sat at his kitchen table, staring at the invitation. He had seen fancy birthday parties before. Balloons, cakes, neatly dressed parents making polite conversation. He didn't belong in a place like that. He sighed, rubbing his calloused hands together. Maybe he should just forget about it. Maybe Lily would too. But then he thought about her face, the way she had looked up at him, like he was someone who mattered. The next afternoon, after his shift ended, he took a quick shower, put on his cleanest button-up shirt, and drove to the address written in crayon. The party was already in full swing when he arrived. Bright balloons lined the fence, children ran around laughing, and a long table overflowed with snacks and presents. Mike hesitated by the gate, suddenly unsure of himself. Parents stood in clusters, chatting over coffee. He recognized some of them, people whose trash he picked up every week, people who never really saw him. Maybe this was a mistake. But then, "Mike!" Lily's voice cut through the crowd as she sprinted toward him. Before he could react, she threw her arms around his waist. "You came!" A hush spread through the crowd. Parents turned, eyebrows raised. Some exchanged glances. "A garbage man? Here?" Mike felt the weight of their stares, the unspoken judgment. He was about to step back, to make up an excuse. But then Lily grabbed his hand, pulling him forward. "Come on! I want you to meet my dad." Lily's father, David, stood near the grill, flipping burgers. He wore a crisp polo shirt, and when he saw Mike approaching, his expression faltered for just a second. "You invited Mr. Reynolds?" he asked, glancing down at Lily. Lily grinned. "Yep, he's my friend." David's gaze shifted to Mike, scanning him from head to toe. There was a brief silence. Then, with the polite stiffness of a man caught off guard, he extended his hand. "Well, welcome. Thanks for coming." Mike shook his hand, but he could feel the unease, the tension. Nearby, some parents whispered. Others just watched. Then one of them, Tina, a woman whose trash Mike collected every Tuesday, stepped forward, her arms crossed. "So what do you do?" she asked, as if she didn't already know. Mike exhaled slowly. "I'm a garbage man." A few awkward coughs. Some parents turned away, pretending to check their phones. Then Lily's voice rang out, clear and confident. "He's the best garbage man ever." A small, nervous chuckle rippled through the group. But Lily wasn't finished. "He keeps our street clean, and he always waves at me, and he's really nice." The silence that followed was different this time. Less awkward, more thoughtful. David cleared his throat. Well, he paused, then nodded. That's important work. Tina shifted uncomfortably. Another father standing nearby suddenly spoke up. You're Mike, right? He asked. You, uh, you helped my wife once. She dropped a bag and you picked it up for her. Mike nodded. He didn't even remember. He had done that kind of thing 1,000 times. Another parent spoke up. Yeah, and didn't you help Mrs. Patel when her bin fell over in that storm last year? The mood shifted. One by one, people started remembering. The small things. The things Mike had done without thinking. Things that mattered. David clapped Mike on the shoulder. Glad you're here, man. Grab a burger. And just like that, the ice was broken. The next morning, as Mike arrived for work, his supervisor waved him over. You got a call this morning, he said. Mike frowned. A call? From City Hall. Mike's stomach dropped. Was he in trouble? His supervisor smirked. Nope. Someone put your name in for an award. Outstanding community service. Mike just stared. What? They're giving you a plaque, a ceremony next week. Mike could barely breathe. And when he started his route that morning, he saw something he never expected. In front of every house on his street, handmade signs. Thank you, Mike. Our community hero. Lily's right, you're the best. Mike sat in his truck for a long time, just staring. For 20 years, he had felt invisible. But all it took was one little girl, one invitation to remind him. He had been part of the story all along. Would you have invited Mike to your party? Let us know in the comments. Kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Story Dash for more powerful, heartwarming stories.